key idea is that you are solving problems by not creating other problems.
You have to ask yourself the question, is what we are doing now in the interest of next generations and our planet? We have to be very critical. And if you are denying the issue of climate change, or if you're denying the issue of scarce natural resources, we will be confronted with the results later. And the longer we wait with taking the right steps, the higher the price will be in the future. That's the point. So what you can see at this moment, that the world is changing and lay a connection between competitiveness and sustainability, I think, and Europe should play a leading role as far as we can see. That's the message of our book.
Welcome to the 10th anniversary season of Swiss Impact with Banerjis.
This season, we bring you the movers, shakers, and visionaries who are redefining industries and turning investments into real lasting impact.
These are the investors changing the game, driving sustainability, transforming lives, and proving that profit and purpose go hand in hand.
Every investment is a choice to shape the world we leave behind. If you're ready to be part of something greater, to invest in impact, to invest in hope, to invest in change,
this is where your journey begins. A very warm welcome to another eye-opening episode of Swiss Impact with Banerjis. Today is not just special, it is historic. We are joined by two remarkable thinkers, and one of them happens to be a former Prime Minister of the Netherlands, from Ben's very homeland.
Thank you. It's absolutely an honor. So today I welcome not just a former Prime Minister of Netherlands, but a very old friend and a visionary, His Excellency Professor Dr. Jan-Peter Balkenende, and his brilliant colleague and co-author, Professor Dr. Govert Buijs.
They are here to discuss the groundbreaking book, Capitalism Reconnected, available at most major online bookstores, a title that has been stirring minds and opening eyes across Europe and beyond. Ben, can you give maybe your testimonial of the book as you read it?
Yeah. I read the book. I even got it from Jan-Peter himself. It's absolutely, and I'm not an economist, just a humble layman in the realm of macroeconomics. I could not only follow it, I also found it deeply compelling.
But tell us more. Tell us more.
More than that, in a time when fear dominates headlines and uncertainty clouds the future, this book speaks of hope, of a new direction. It's a beacon for those of us working in impact, sustainability, and especially for us in Europe.
Then let's not wait a moment longer. Please join us in welcoming our esteemed guest, His Excellency Professor Dr. Jan-Peter Balkenende and Professor Dr. Govert Buijs. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Yeah,
and great seeing you again.
Same here, Jan-Peter. Please let me say a few more words about you and your friend. We start with you, Professor Jan-Peter. As a former Prime Minister of Netherlands, you've dedicated your work to responsible governance, sustainable economic growth, and international collaboration. From leading the country to your ongoing efforts with the Dutch Sustainable Growth Coalition and Erasmus University, you've continued to shape how we think about leadership in today's rapidly changing world. And also very warm welcome to you, Professor Dr. Govert Buijs. Your research and thinking have been truly impactful. Through your work as the Goldschmeding Chair for Societal and Economic Renewal, you've challenged how we understand markets, ethics, and the role of economy in human flourishing. Your voice brings such depth to the conversation on how our system can better serve, and the keyword is serve, the society. So together we've seen the book you crafted, Capitalism Reconnected, a very powerful and timely book that calls for a more inclusive, sustainable, and future-ready market economy. Gentlemen, it's our privilege again, so let's start our journey today together.
So to start,
thank you.
Dive into your work and ideas. Our audience would love to hear from you. How would you each describe your journey in a few words?
My life consists, in fact, of three pillars. One is academia, 2 studies, economic and social history and law, PhD in law, 2 professorships, and 6 honorary degrees. The second pillar is politics, the member of city council, member of parliament, prime minister, and minister of state. And the third pillar is being active in the business sector, partner corporate responsibility and international relations at EY. I'm chairman of the Dutch Sustainable Growth Coalition and associate partner at FGS Global. These 3 pillars are not separate entities. I always underline the fact that you can learn from each other. You have to see the common agenda. And what helped me is just watching around. What is happening in the world? Try to analyze, try to listen to people. And when I was a student, then we had a discussion about what about the future of the welfare state? Reforms are necessary. Later on, we had discussions about Europe. What about the future of Europe? The Europe 1992, for example. And later on, we got discussions around sustainability. What about climate change? All these things are there, and that means you have to be very active in analyzing what is happening, but also you have the responsibility to develop new views and insights. And that's what we try to do.
Perfect.
Thank you. And now you, Professor Buijs.
Yeah, just very briefly. Yeah, I'm my life has one pillar in the that metaphor, in the sense that I'm an academic. But I was very much involved first in political philosophy, and especially working on the whole idea of ideologies and how do people get in the grip of certain mindsets that really determines their life and actions. And then later on, especially after the credit crisis, I became involved with educating economics and business students. And it was a very challenging time to see, well, what are the ideas behind that we have been living from until the credit crisis, and what are the new crises beyond that, the new thoughts that can guide us into the future. And that really brought my way into this whole theme of capitalism, economics, etc. So that is a little bit more recent in the sense that for me it started with the credit crisis, this particular involvement. Yeah.
Amazing. Maybe you can name 1 or 2 highlights in your lives that shaped your perspective on leadership, economy, and sustainability. What was these crucial moments or happenings?
Well, in the 80s, of course, also then, I liked reading books. So you had books of Alvin Toffler, The Third Wave, or John Naisbitt, Megatrends. I like these books because they were inspiring. What's happening in the world, and it broadens your own view. And in the 90s, we had a famous book of Franz Fukuyama, Trust. High trust societies are better performing than low trust societies. It was a great book. And a book about capitalism against capitalism, Rhinelandic versus Anglo-Saxon, fantastic book of Michel Albert. And during the last years, I really liked the work of the Nobel Prize winners for economics, Acemoglu, Robinson, and Johnson. Fantastic books, Why Nations Fail, and other books. And these books inspired me so much to have a broad view on society and to also to generate new ideas. So I must say, these books helped me in developing also my own views.
Amazing. I'm sure our audience will be writing down, okay, what are the books?
I was just going to write down myself, the last one, Why Nations Fail.
How about you, Professor Buijs?
Yeah, well, I mentioned already that the credit crisis for me was a real kind of shock. What is happening there, and that evolved me into a journey in kind of both in terms of leadership. I think especially the work of Manfred Katz de Vries on narcissistic leadership and how leaders can be enclosed in their own tunnels, their own worldview, and then do not have any sense of responsibility for society at large anymore. And that was really kind of shocked that is possible to, and that brought me back into the whole ideas of Rhinelandic thinking, in which you can okay, you have this kind of stakeholder, you have the shareholder capitalism, and you have the stakeholder capitalism, and that is very important to have this distinction there. That you say, well, companies are there. We allow companies in our society, and they have a great job to do, but they have to be as well to be connected to society, and that's really what is the heart of this Rhinelandic model, which for me was kind of a great discovery, that you can think from different angles about economics and about economic systems, and that some are need more in terms of human flourishing, some are more conducive to human flourishing than others, and that's very important to bring that perspective.
Okay. And if we start at the beginning, your book Capitalism Reconnected calls for a radical rethinking of the economy. So what made you to decide to take on this ambitious project together?
Well, if you read our book, you will see that we start with the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, because we are convinced that if you are living on one planet and there are so many common challenges, you also need common solutions. You must have common goals. You must have a common language. And that was, in fact, the conviction we had. How can we bring together our views and insights? And in fact, what we try to do in the book is give answers to three important issues. The first is, of course, what about the future of Europe? Europe is standing between superpowers like the US and China. What about competitiveness? The second issue is which type of economy, market economy, capitalism is preferable? And the third one is what about the position of citizens? How can we restore trust? And usually these three elements are treated separately. And Govert and I had a conviction, you should bring them into relationship with each other. You must have a view on these common challenges and try to find views to find a way out and to have new perspectives. And that also leads, of course, to the economics of hope.
And how about this Thorny triangle, which you introduce in your book, which describes the balance between sustainability, democracy, and autonomy? It's great and big ideas, but what does its implementation really look like on the ground of this?
Yeah, well, we consciously designed it as a triangle, and we call it the Thorny triangle in terms that it is not easy to just to go to one of the part of the triangle, and you have to constantly to navigate in between these various things. And if you want to have a different economy, it is very important that the population is taken along in this project. And that you are very well aware of the geopolitical context in which you do certain things. And then it is very important, that's at the heart of our triangle, that you have your values very clearly formulated. And that's why we have this strong emphasis on saying, well, if you have your values clearly formulated, and we have 4 of them, say, well, human dignity, regenerativity, say the whole sustainability thing, and co-creativity and inclusivity. These are 4 leading values. And as long as you have these in mind, then you can always say, well, sometimes you have to maneuver a little bit more into, well, this, you can say the democratic legitimacy of what you're doing. And sometimes you can make steps toward more the sustainability and inclusivity in a new type of economy. Sometimes you have to be very much aware, say, well, given the now geopolitical circumstances, we have to give good attention to this, but as long as you keep your values clear, then you can still maneuver there and inspire people as well to find new directions. So there's a Thorny triangle. There's as well an invitation to creativity, I think, as you can see.
And Govert, let me add this to what you've said. We have the 5 I's in our book. We say you need new ideals. For example, what about purpose? We need new inspiration. For example, you can learn from the good side of European history. We need new ideas. For example, think in terms of the relations instead of transactions. We need new indicators, and we must have new institutions. And an example of the new institutions is our multi-actor approach. If you want to realize, for example, SDGs, you need all actors, businesses, financial sector, NGOs, knowledge centers, creative thinkers. And your question is really good because you can have brilliant ideas, you can have new concepts, but what about the implementation? That's key. And I've seen in the Netherlands beautiful examples how institutions are really working with SDGs. For example, universities and University of Applied Sciences are very active in working with these SDGs. I've seen cities, NGOs being very active. So you must have a concept, you must have a view, but also the willingness to implement. You're completely right.
Thank you.
And talking about Netherlands, it's good, but your book is also promoting very strongly that Europe should lead.
Yeah.
But if I look at the ground reality now, the continent of Europe, it seems like a rudderless ship. It's fractured, we are under invasion, we are lacking strong leadership and facing ecological degradation, social inequality, democratic disconnection, geopolitical vulnerability.
Okay,
oh my God.
How can we as Europeans truly lead the world in conscious leadership and develop ecologically sustainable capitalism.
But Ben, you're completely right with, I think your analysis was going into the wrong direction. But on the other hand, I see also changes. At this moment, people in Europe do understand that if you want to tackle the migration issue, you must work together. If you see what's happening now in Ukraine, the Russian aggression over there, it's about our security. We have to act together. If you talk about climate change, for example, you cannot do it separately. You need each other. And at this moment, competitiveness is high on the agenda. You've read the reports of Mr. Letta and Mr. Draghi, former prime ministers of Italy. Great reports. And I think these elements are clarifying that the atmosphere, in any case, is changing. Much has to be done, that's true, but it's now or never. It's a very important moment at this moment that we are aware of the risks of what we see in the world, and it's up to us in Europe to find a way out or not.
Yeah, I think you are too negative about Europe. And I think that other parts in the world are very clear about the power of Europe. That's why now, for example, the United States is so hard attacking Europe, because Europe is indeed, for example, in terms of the ESG criteria, they have now become under strong attack in the United States. Why? Because it really made an impact. And they want to now, so you have, and that's why I think we should not, play down the whole of Europe, but Europe should really say, well, this is the time to really stand up and be true to ourselves, because what has been achieved in the last couple of decades in terms of cooperation is already interesting. I think in the world, the only way that we can, at a global level, work together is by cooperation and not by just dictatorship or something like that. So I think, and Europe is a kind of practicing ground for how you can work with sovereign states and closely work together. So I was recently in Indonesia, and people say, well, what you do in Europe would be impossible in Asia. And really, it is amazing what you are doing there. So I think we should not play down it too much, but the challenges are certainly there. So I certainly agree with you there. But I think there is a lot of things there's a lot of strength in Europe as well, I think.
And I saw that you were in Indonesia. I was in Kenya a few weeks ago, and the funny thing was we had a conference over there, and a former president of Mongolia, he was very positive about Europe. Also, because the arguments you are mentioning, it was so remarkable that people outside Europe are saying, hey, this is very relevant what you're doing.
No.
Yeah. In my opinion, Europe is a bit over-comfortable of all these achievements, and maybe people need to wake a little bit and go out of the comfort zone and not think just about profit, because what I face is still profit. They want more, even more comfortable life, even more money, and all this. So capitalism and profit at any cost often go hand in hand. How do we turn the tide toward a model that is profitable and ethical without sounding like a fairy tale? That people should really act on that.
Yeah. During a long time, it was all about Anglo-Saxon thinking, making profits in the short run, etc. We know that. But if you are talking about what is necessary in today's world, you must have a balance between financial capital, human capital, and nature capital. You must have a kind of balance. Companies here, board members here, are supposed to invest in long-term value creation. And we have had a discussion now since a long time that if we are considering what's happening in our world, climate change, scarcity of natural resources, combating inequality, Arctic melting, when you want to find solutions for those big issues, just think in terms of profit maximization in the short run will never work, because you will have damage in the longer run. And I must say it's really bad if people only would focus on, let's say, short-term results. Much more has to be done, and that's the message of our book, take into account the long term. And this is, I think, what you've seen in the discussions on capitalism during the last years. It is, you should serve all stakeholders and not only the shareholders. It should be about the long term and not only the short term. And you must have a much better balance between economic, social, and ecological developments. And also means you must have new indicators. Our GDP is in fact not enough. If you talk about business results, it's more than only quarterly reporting about the financial results. We need other indicators. That's the message of our book.
Yeah, and I think your question as well, that you say, well, hasn't Europe been too, you could say, making too much taking advantage of a certain situation in terms of its own security and its own and the way the world economy was organized. And certainly, I think that's right. I think that Europe has not been proactive in terms of the future threats, both military, but as well in terms of the threat of globalization. And we are now talking about strategic autonomy, and you should not over-exaggerate that. On the other hand, but still, that's an important thing to achieve, and that you have to have your certain capacities. You have to build to have that to maintain that in your own area. That you can have your own medicine, some of essential industries, etc. I think that we have been way too. Is a Belgian political scientist, Holtzlag, who talks about the decadent Europe. Well, that was certainly a risk. But I think in that sense, we are learning fast now, I think, and in that sense, and that will give some pain, certainly. But I think there is enough strength in Europe to see this, and that we can really find new directions there. But yeah, that is a real challenge, absolutely.
And another point I wanted to send is that in today's world, with the COVID, the Trump tariff, the Putin's war, and retreating democracies, sustainability and environment seems to have gone down in the priority list of many European or the world leaders. So what are your views on this?
Yeah, I think the observation is right. Now it's about America first. It's about business results. It's about anti-ESG sentiments. We can see it everywhere. I think this is a very risky affair. And you have to ask yourself the question, is what we are doing now in the interest of next generations and our planet? We have to be very critical. And if you are denying the issue of climate change, or if you're denying the issue of scarce natural resources, we will be confronted with the results later. And the longer we wait with taking the right steps, the higher the price will be in the future. That's the point. And I'm concerned about the fact that we've had a time that people were aware of all those risks. The year 2015 was a rather good year. It was a time for the COP21, the climate summit in Paris. It was successful. We had the encyclical Laudato Si of Pope Francis. It was a good document. So in those days, people had the willingness to work together and to say, yes, these are serious issues. We should have common goals and we should have common actions. The time now is different, that's true. But I have hope in the young generations. And if you are thinking about what do we see today, can we go on with these short-termism views? I think it's a very risky affair. And we will be confronted with results if we are not changing these tendencies.
And if we look back at financial crisis, 2008 and others, what lessons did we not learn that we absolutely must embrace now?
That's a great question. Of course, you know the book of Ken Rogoff and Karma Reinhardt. This time is different. It's a book about 800 years financial crisis. And every time people say this time is different, but still we are making the same mistakes. Mm-hmm. And what we've seen in 2008, 2009, I was Prime Minister in those days, in the beginning people were starting to reflect on what is happening, how did it come, how was it generated, what was the ideas behind it. And then people said we should have a more sound financial sector. And I must say, we have learned some lessons. The buffers are better, more control mechanisms. The financial situation of banks is better at the moment. But we also see that there's a lot of financialization, thinking financial terms. It's about the financial revenues. And I think we have not learned enough. And so I understand your critical remark. And we should do things in another way. You're right.
Yeah, and I think as well it's important that you do not have this idea of history, well, it's going always great and we will always make progress and become more ethical, etc. There is a fight going on, I think, and sometimes you are in the harder times and sometimes you are in more, so Jan-Peter mentioned the year 2015. That was a year of hope, new perspectives, and then you kind of have to expect resistance, and then say, okay, then we have to reformulate clearly what the long-term perspectives are, and indeed say, well, indeed, we have choices to make, and that will not always be easy choices, but yet you have to make them and not say, well, we can just lay down and history will do the work for us. Kind the Fukuyama perspective, in the earlier Fukuyama, well, now the end of history is there. That is not how it works. You have to be constantly there and say, well, and that's why we have written this book, actually, to give this perspective. And we are now working on a Dutch translation with a new introduction, which we have. I think this idea of that you have to move with conviction is very important, especially when things are going into a different direction. And I say, well, okay, now the time is over. Trump is winning. Now the time of the autocrats. That is not a way to stand in history. I think.
I completely agree. What I believe, if the whole world is going crazy and insane, it's even more important for you to stay sane, right?
Yeah.
And still focus on sustainability and other important things.
So, Jan-Peter, because you have to run soon, so you have been at the helm of our country. What was the biggest roadblock you had in pushing sustainability when you were the PM? And
Prime Minister.
Prime Minister.
Yeah.
And assume that you are today suddenly again elected to be the Prime Minister. What would you do things differently?
Ben, you're always raising these great questions. Very nice. Let's say, I must say, when I was Prime Minister, the time was a bit different. I remember I was invited to introduce Al Gore with his film An Inconvenient Truth in Amsterdam. So that was a matter of awareness. I remember when we had a financial crisis, my last cabinet, of course, we had to save the financial sector in our country. But also we stimulated the economy, and we said we should directly emphasize environmental issues, climate issues. So there was already a start. We've made much progress in those days, in all these years, I must say, in between. So, and we started with more transparency among companies. We started with an organization for the SMEs in the Netherlands, how to act in a sustainable way. So these are things that we were doing. Today, if you would be Prime Minister, I would say focus on any case on Europe, because you cannot act alone. My recommendation would be, if you talk about spending money, directly lay connection between competitiveness and sustainability. Because you can spend your money only once and do it in the right way. What I've seen in the world is that those countries that are willing to learn, suddenly you see, hey, what can we do in the sphere of sustainable practices? For example, China has understood that the European market is changing, and they developed the electric vehicles. And they did it very rapidly. I took part in discussions in Japan about the circular economy. So what you can see at this moment, that the world is changing, and lay a connection between competitiveness and sustainability, I think, and Europe should play a leading role as far as we can see. That's the message of our book.
Amazing. Let's talk about ethics. And Professor Buijs, I have a question to you now to explore it in depth. So you explore the ethics of markets, and companies nowadays a lot of times just walking the talk. They're rebranding, they're conscious for PR points and do a lot of greenwashing. So your research includes the economic ethics of world religions as well. Do different faith traditions converge on key ethical business principles? So what can we do more for them really implement things?
Yeah, that's a very, very, very interesting question there, and I just completed a volume in which we have representative of the various world religions reflecting on markets and business, and there is big unanimity in there, and it's not surprising that they say, well, the market is there to serve each other, to serve your neighbors, and not to be there for your own private gains. Although you are, of course, you have your own interests too, but always should be aligned with others. And so there is a huge commonality there among the various world religions. And I would say that was for me a big discovery with someone like Adam Smith, who very much as well has this same idea of what a market is. It is really a way that we can serve each other with our own creativity and our own gifts, and develop things that are important for our neighbors, and they can buy the thing that we make, and we can buy their stuff, and we can exchange this, and in that sense help each other. And Adam Smith is even saying the market is an occasion for friendship between people. So that is the high moral view that he had there, and I think that is important to see that indeed, if it works well, then indeed that can be, but you need always structures to kind of to check the people who are making misuse of the opportunity of the market, starting to manipulate, etc. So a market cannot be there without certain overview, so to say, regulations to keep it on track. But if that is the case, then it is still, I think, it is a wonderful way to help others, to help each other, and to contribute to human flourishing. But you need regulation, you need limits, and especially you need to make it impossible that people, the external effects of what they are doing, the negative effect, that they're always kind of externalized. Yes, and so then it becomes very easy to make profits at the cost of creating other problems. And I think the key idea is that you are solving problems by not creating other problems, and that, I think, is the heart of business. I think.
Govert, let me add this. Once I attended several years ago now a conference in a meeting in Thailand, and it was organized by the Co-Round Table for Moral Capitalism of Steve Young. He's the director. And what happened over there, people from different backgrounds, Roman Catholics, Protestants, Hindus, Muslims, Buddhists, humanists, were invited to reflect on one question: how can we, with our different backgrounds, contribute to the realization of the SDGs? I think that was a great question, but it was helpful because there was also a kind of respect towards each other, and we went into discussions that really helped to get a better understanding, but also to find the way out. How can we work together in order to realize those goals? I think that's very stimulating.
Amazing.
And now to a new topic. So AI is here. We like it or not, it is here. Can it be, in your opinion, a driver of ethical capitalism, or is it a fast-track ticket to deeper inequality?
This is a really great question, because AI is everywhere and it has huge consequences. When I speak with people, say you will see complete change in the labor market, etc. So you have to reflect on it also from an ethical point of view. Let me a concrete example. Some people say it will lead to a loss of jobs, and that means you must have a basic income. Just an example. But then, if you talk in these terms about labor, then you only talk in terms of you're working to get an income. But working means working together with others, learning from others, sharing views and insights of others. So you have to think about what about labor in this world of AI. So you must be aware of the fact there are huge opportunities, there are also risks. And that means you do not only have the technical possibilities, but also you have to reflect on the ethical sides of that. And it can go in the right direction. It can also lead to difficulties. That is a matter of which choice are we taking. If you read the book of Acemoglu and Johnson, Power and Progress, there's a book about 1,000-year new technologies. And the question is, who are taking benefit of those innovations? And in fact, those who are inventing are also taking all the revenues. That's a big risk. So it's also a matter of sharing knowledge, but also sharing revenues. I think this is really key.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think as well. I think it is important to reflect on what AI can do and what it cannot do, and then take our measures. As I find it very interesting in Australia that they say, well, now so the iPhones, they are now with 15 years now, and you see incredible bad results among young people now, depression, etc. And they say, well, we can take measures together to say, well, where is it fruitful and where is it not fruitful? So in schools, we just say no to certain things. And I think that is the attitude that in AI, you should not immediately say, throw it away or be against it or something, but where can it be made to a fruitful use, and where does it perhaps destroy certain things that are valuable to us? And I think, and that's why I find this Australia thing very important. That is what you can do as societies. You can make decisions, and it is not just, okay, it happens, yes, there are certain developments, but how you implement it in society, that is still is a political matter. I think we should really treat it as such.
Mm-hmm. Okay, changing back to sustainable finance, because there are many who are really meaning about sustainable finance, impact investing, like us supporting it, But what I see, we are still 62 years behind global agenda as per United Nations statistics themselves. So what are the biggest barriers to making sustainable finance a global standard? Why can't we do it? What's struggling? What stops us?
This is a key element, because if you are not able to find the right solution, you get huge difficulties. So the question is, what is the role of organizations like the OECD? They have views on taxation, for example. What is the World Bank and IMF doing? So you need those institutions. What are the insights? So there has been attempts to combat the tax havens, for example. That's one. There has also been a decision which tax company should pay worldwide. We must be honest. Let's say if you are avoiding paying taxes, then you get difficulties. So it's a matter of ethics. It's a matter of the right implementation. And therefore, you need also global cooperation. My concern is if the world is falling apart, if it's geopolitical tensions and economic fragmentation, these are not the best circumstances to realize the things you have to realize together. And so you're right with your observation. And I'm concerned if you're not finding the right solutions for this issue, we will be confronted with difficulties during a long time. If you talk about climate change, for example, how to finance it, there are a lot of promises, but usually these promises are not being fulfilled. We have to learn from what happened in the past. And if we are not doing this, you will see the price will be higher in the longer run. I'm very concerned about a lot of developments in the world. And we know what the difficulties are, and so we cannot wait. And that's in fact your message, and I agree with that.
And to add on this, I think important is, and that has been a real very interesting development, is the whole way of that you can report. So the whole integrated reported movement, and that is that are real indicators there that are measurable. And I think there's just not profit, but there are a lot of other indicators, and that have become quite sophisticated now. And I think this is a huge development, very important, because then you have as well something that you can steer on, so to say, that you can say that you can use to really evaluate how a company is doing on all different levels. And as long as you have only profit as your standard, then that will be the only thing. So I think, and that is, I think, as well one of the strengths of Europe, that it starts to really to have this more integrated reporting as something that companies are responsible for. And well, we have to do a lot of work before this becomes the international standard. But Europe, as a big market, already is trying to implement this. And I think, given that is not right now the way to go, but in a few years from now, you may have another American president, and you can as well have some conversation with China about it. China is not stupid in terms of sustainability. Yeah, they are. That's an important issue there. So I think we should be open about the way we can reshape as well our international order in this respect.
You're right. So integrated reporting is there and will be there, and CSRD and CSDD in Europe are there, and of course there are some measures at this moment, but the future is very clear, and that's a good direction in any case.
We need to round up soon, so very last question before we do that. If you had the power, Jan Peter, to rewrite only one global economic rule, what would it be and why?
Well, at this moment, my reply would be, we already have a global agenda, the SDGs. If you're not willing to realize them, we will get difficulties. So it's a matter of implementing what we are doing. That's one. The second point is, when I was a kid, I always heard the saying, one world or no world. You should have this conviction. We are on this planet and we have to work together. And the basic idea behind the SDGs is leave no one behind. Please, please, please take into account this important value.
Amazing. So, call to action for each of you. Maybe Professor Buijs, you start. Key message, what people should take away from this conversation, or whatever was not said yet. What do you want to say to our global audience?
Video that we show in our book, refer to in the book, is how to start a movement. And that is very interesting that you can say, well, that shows someone who's going to dance on the beach. And everybody says, well, this guy is crazy. But then all of a sudden, someone is joining the guy on the beach. And then all of a sudden, other people saying, well, maybe it's not that bad idea. So that's the first follower is very important. And then and after a while, everybody is dancing on the beach. And I think that is, you have the courage to start with something. Try to get other people first, make coalitions. People can go with you, and then hope that at a certain point of time, you will in fact set a new standard. And I think that is very important. So have the courage to start, make coalitions, and then try to scale up.
Thank you for this amazing message. Now you, Jan-Peter,
Yeah,
your call to action.
Okay, we are talking much about what's happening in the United States at this moment. The US is also the country of the Statue of Liberty. But I think we also need something completely different. And that's what we could call the Statue of Responsibility. And let's build up that statue together, worldwide.
Wow. Let's
do that. I'm in. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining today for this conversation. It has been a true pleasure. And read the books, all the books mentioned in this conversation. I think they're all amazing.
Thank you so very much, both of you, for your time and for this interview. Although I had so many more questions.
Thank you, boss.
Thank you very much. Thanks for giving the opportunity. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
I think the key message for me was also, because we mentioned a lot of negative thing, is to stay positive and see what we still have, right? To take care of it, what we have, and not to forget what achievements has been done over the last decades. And when we focus on the positive, for sure, we can overcome.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, see you in the next show. Bye-bye.
Bye for now.
What an inspiring conversation. Impact investing is more than just finance. It's about shaping the world we want to live in.
If this episode sparked new ideas or possibilities for you, don't keep it to yourself. Get involved.
Subscribe for more powerful insights. Follow us on social media and be part of this movement.
Are you an investor making a difference? We'd love to feature your story in our next episode. Reach out and join us.
Let's build a better, more sustainable world, isn't it? Together. See you in the next episode.